right, so when we're zeroing our rifle, one important thing, there's multiple important things, but right now the important thing is to have a solid base for our rifle, meaning we don't have any wiggle. So in certain circumstances, it's not super solid, but it works. I'll just use my fist, but you do get some wiggle. The best thing that I think that we can do is use a bag, because that bag will be nice and solid. So we get our bag right up under the back of our rifle, and then we can squeeze this if we need some lift, and then we can lay it down, we can lay it up this way, or we can even lay it to the subway. So it gives us a lot of room. So one important thing is to make sure everything is nice and solid, and then you're behind the rifle. So what I like to do is, when I'm zeroing my rifle, if I can, I like to get in the prone position. I get on target, and I just use the bag to get perfectly on target. Once I'm on target, I like to try to scoot forward just a little bit. So I'm actually moving into the gun. So I'm not pulling the gun into me. Essentially, that's what I'm doing. But in prone, I like to scoot into the gun and then get on target. So we're in perfect position to take our first shot. Once we take our first shot, that's where I'll roll in the other video and you can see how to correctly adjust it. And then once it's adjusted, we'll take our second shot to get our rifle zeroed in. All right, so I'm on the Tacticam. I hope you can hear me. Let me back out just a little bit here so you can see what target we were using. So this is basically a target that I made, and as you can see, it is a almost exact replica that lines up perfectly, horizontally anyways. I'm sorry, vertically, horizontally. I could not get the measurements correct, even though I input them correctly on my computer. When it printed out, it did not print them out correctly. But let's see, let me go ahead and scoot back in here. So we are going to be sighting in our rifle, and we are just going to pretend like the blue pin is our bullet hole. Now, one thing we need to keep in mind is the bullet, or the bullet hole, is always the focal point. So when we're doing this, if we're looking at the reticle, we can see that the bullet is, so we are 2 mils low and 1 mil to the left. I'm trying to keep this perfectly on target here while I'm doing this. That way this makes sense. There we go. So the bullet is the focus. So we want to bring the bullet to the center of our reticle. If you look at it like you're going to take the reticle to the bullet, you're going to start dialing backwards. So we want to bring the bullet to the reticle. Another way to keep this in mind is like when we reload bullets. When we shoot the bullet, and when we make an adjustment, we want to adjust the bullet. So it's always the bullet we're focused on. So even though we are going to dial up, our reticle is actually going to move down. So that's why this can be a little tricky. There is another way to do this, and that's actually to take the reticle to the bullet if you don't know how to use the measurements in your scope, but that's why we're going over this. So we can see that we are 2 mils low and 1 mil to the right. So we can simply dial up to the 2 on our reticle. So when we dial 2, and this doesn't line up perfectly because I keep having to move the gun, and then we are going to dial again. So we're bringing the bullet to us, so we are left. We need to dial right 1 mil. So one of the little tricks that I learned for the windage is left out and right back. I saw this in, I think, one of Ryan Kleckner's books. Basically something about going to a party, you don't want to be left out and you got to be right back, something along those lines. So that's just a little thing that helps me with that. So we need to come up. Let me get this line back up as close as I can. We'll call that good. So we need to come right 1 mil. So just like that, and that's how we are going to zero our scope. Now the next thing we need to do is get back onto our center of our target, and we are going to take our next shot. Now if everything is done perfectly, then we should be perfect where we're at, but our fundamentals, if you're a beginner, fundamentals may not be perfect. So we may have to do this once or twice, maybe a couple times, but essentially that is going to get you right where you need to be. So when we're sighting in our rifles, don't expect to get hole in hole. The goal, I would say, for right now is to get it as close as possible, or close enough, or something like 1 MOA, so 1 inch. Especially I recommend zeroing at 100 yards, so really looking for an inch. Now if you're more advanced, then we're definitely looking for the tightest group we can possibly do. If my gun only shoots 1 MOA, I'm going to be a little bit disappointed. Typically, most of my rifles I can get down to about half MOA, maybe a hair above it, maybe a hair below, but typically right in that half inch at 100 yards. So there's a lot of things we still have to go over, like the fundamentals. So once you get it zeroed in, we're going to go over the fundamentals, and then it's really important to focus on the fundamentals, and then that one whole group will be coming in a very short time, or very close to one whole group. Definitely way better than what I would expect as a beginner starting out. Once you get the fundamentals down, some dry fire practice, your groups are going to shrink significantly. So just be patient, give a little bit of time, a little bit of practice, and we'll be going over fundamentals of marksmanship and some other things in the next upcoming videos. So I think that is it for now. We've got our rifle zeroed in, and then this is actually a perfect time to use your dope book. Mark these things down in your dope book, and then if you have a chronograph, because we have a brand new clean bore, it's a really good time to start getting some muzzle velocity on our clean bore. And then depending on how you want to do it, if you always want to clean your bore, then you want to keep that up and then keep track of the velocity. So I tend to not clean the bore, and I can check if I go back and I clean the bore, then I know what my velocity is going to be at a clean bore versus a dirty bore. So it's really important to keep track of this stuff. That's why you want to go ahead, if you have the chronograph, go ahead and start logging your muzzle velocity now. And then once we get into our data collection, I will show you exactly what to do with that information and how to kind of minimize it to use it for exactly what we need to know. So I think that's it for now. It's starting to get a little bit dark out here. So thank you guys for tuning in.